A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this webinar on the critical HR competencies for the sustainable enterprise. We have a very good galaxy of speakers. I would like to introduce them one by one. Shortly about myself, Zahid Mubarak is my name. I'm leading the company HR Metrics. And my company is also partner with SHRM, which is the world's largest HR association. And the government of Pakistan has also appointed me as a country chair on the HR standards. And I worked with the almost 12 national standard bodies in this face-to-face environment, including the American national standards, the British standards, French standards, German standards, Italy standards, Indonesia standards, Singapore standards, and a few others. Also member of the Pakistan Stock Exchange and the ESG task force, led by Dr. Shamshad. And quite recently, I resigned from the board of directors of the Center for Global Inclusion USA after having served there for 2 tenures. So the session is going to be very exciting. We are going to get a cross perspective of this speakers. So we are going to have with us today Waqar Islam, Director and Chief Executive, Jaffer Business Systems, Dr. Syed Azizur Rab, CEO, Green Star Social Marketing, Memosh Khwaja, CEO and President, Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance, Sardar Abu Bakr, Chief Business and Chief Commercial Officer, Rakami Digital Bank, Saibzadi Main Khan, Founder, President, Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Korangi, Karachi, and CEO, Mahin Khan and Company. Adil Ramani, SHRM SCP, Head of the HR, Pakistan Petroleum, Bakr Ahmed, Head of the HR, Exim Bank. It's the Export-Import Bank of Pakistan, newly formed organization, Talha Basi, Senior Manager, HR and Culture, HRSC, and myself. So I would like to share with you the brief context, the justification of why we are doing it. There's an organization in the United States called DDI, Development Dimension International. It has a mandate of developing the world-class leaders. And every year they try to understand what's the pain point for the CEO, what keeps them awake at night. And they conduct various surveys. So during one of the most recent research, they try to determine what is hovering on the minds of the CEOs in terms of the top concerns, including everything, maybe the IT, recession, economy, the stock exchange, uncertainty, people management. And interestingly, out of the 529 CEOs, the highest number of the people who cited the problem was related to the HR in terms of attracting and retaining top talent, developing next generation of leaders, maintaining an engaged workforce. So this gives us a clear direction that despite a lot of talk about the AI, the VUCA, and the economic uncertainty, the biggest issue with the HR, with the CEO, is the people management. So why we are doing this webinar? HR Metrics took the initiative of introducing the competency-based HR in Pakistan. And we did it more than 10 years ago. For the reason, with I think due respect, I would like to mention that the CEOs, when they hire a doctor, they look for the FCPS or FRCS. When they want to hire the accountant, they look for the chartered accountant for the CFO position. They cannot afford to have a lawyer unless the person has a license on the legal side. They cannot afford to have an engineer unless the person is registered with Pakistan Engineering Council. But when it comes to the HR management, traditionally, HR is considered to be such a generic function. There's no quality control. And that is where the world's largest HR association comes, the SHRM. SHRM is the world's largest HR association, having footprints in 165 countries, 325,000 members, with more than 70 years of the life. Rather now, quite recently, we celebrated the 75th anniversary in the Las Vegas. So we introduced the competency-based framework in Pakistan because of the reason that HR is now a full-fledged structured profession. It was only in the primitive times, early 20th century, when the investment in the human capital was less than 4%, where it was a purely labor management, but now it's the human capital, where you consider that you invest in the human capital, and you develop people, and they have a lot of payoff for the organization. So we promoted the competency, a structured competency framework, which was developed by the SHRM, and the analytics was our core expertise, because we connect the HR performance with the organization performance, not just in the form of the activities, but the outcomes and the impact, ROI metrics, and also the metrics which are important for all the stakeholders. We introduced the global HR, global diversity, equity, and inclusion benchmark standards. This is basically owned by the Center for Global Inclusion, and there are authors, 3 authors, and the 112 global experts who developed. I'm also one of them. And most recently, we have introduced the global HR, global human capital standard on the HR disclosure for the stakeholders. And fortunately, we can say that we have developed highest number of people in the world on the human capital disclosure standard. So this is our background and the context and the connection with the subject. And over there, I would like to mention the HR competency framework in a bit more details. As I said, traditional concept is that HR is something which is just doable, whether there's no quality control, but in the actual terms, SHRM, which is the world's largest HR association, has developed this framework with the input of 32 nations through a research with 32,000 professionals in 33 countries, 111 focus groups in 29 cities across the world. And this is a constantly adapted model, because every year it goes through the rigorous change. So this is the current state, where you have the behavioral competencies in the form of the business, having the business acumen, internal consultation, and the analytics as sub-competencies, the leadership development, including the leadership navigation, ethical practice, diversity and inclusion, and interpersonal, including the relationship management, communication, the global mindset. And this is the behavioral part. It is supported by the technical competency divided into 3 domains: people, organization, the workplace. And those areas further spread into the more competencies. Like in people, you have the HR strategy, talent acquisition, learning and development, total rewards, employee management, employee engagement and retention. Under the workplace, you have the managing global workforce, if it's part of your mandate, risk management, corporate social responsibility, US employment law and regulations. It's only applicable in the United States. Outside the United States, in the rest of the country, this competency is not applicable. And under the organization, how do you create an agile, lean structure to basically support the fluid operations of the organization effectiveness and development, workforce management, technology management, employee and labor relations. So this is the complete overarching framework. And SHRM has developed 2 qualifications with a clear distinction between the operational HR and the strategic HR. Because in a strategic role, you're working with the top leadership, you're looking at the direction of the organization, you are overseeing the HR function, but in the operational role, you are mainly responsible for the implementation and reporting to somebody within the HR function. And there are explicit performance indicators with the help of which you can determine what is the mandate of the operational HR professional in the different areas, and what is the mandate of the CHRO. And we promoted this qualification in Pakistan. Worldwide, there are 131,000 people qualified in this competency. And in Pakistan, we have almost 150 people. So it's not a mechanism of just learning new things, but constantly learning to unlearn. For that matter, there's a need for ensuring the currency of the expertise. Like we are doing this webinar, it's approved by the SHRM USA for 2 BDCs, 2 professional development credits. So just like the framework, which is required by the medical, by the doctors, by the legal, so HR is completely in alignment with what is happening in the rest of the world. We are very much interested to know what is the preference and the requirement of the HR within the country, because one of the global aspects and how do you customize to local environment. So periodically we do the research. This is the outcome of the last year research that we did it ourselves. We try to understand by contacting the CEOs and the HR leaders, what are the behavioral competencies critically required for the HR. And which we could see a clear alignment between what is required at the global level, because if you look at the global research, they talk about the leadership development. Even the CEOs in Pakistan, they also shared their preference, leadership development, diversity and inclusion, Communication with the stakeholders, business acumen, these are some of the top competencies. Likewise, in terms of the functional, the technical expertise, developing the HR strategy comes first, employee engagement and retention, and organizational effectiveness and development, supported by the other competencies. So this is the overall background. Now we are here to understand the truly market perspective, because we never come up with a prescription. We can, so we have you got a two set of panels, the business leaders. We expect them to let us know that what are their issues, what are the strategic human capital issues threatening the sustainability that loom on their minds, and what competencies they expect from the CHROs. At the same time, we have I think in the interest of the time, obviously we cannot have large number of the speakers. So at least 3 speakers, I call them the HR leaders in a way that those are SHRM certified, and they represent, I think, a large organization, including particularly the large industry also. So we are interested to understand how they are responding to the overall demands of the CEO, not necessarily their CEOs, but in terms of their overall focus as an HR leader, and how they're using the SHRM global competency to cater for the needs of the CEO from the business expectation perspective. So in the business leaders segments, we have already shared the name with you. So at least 5 speakers, and in the HR leaders segment, we have the 3 speakers. So with this, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Waqar Islam. Waqar Saab, have you joined? Okay, so even if he's not joined, I would like to introduce him. So Waqar Islam is a corporate executive turned an entrepreneur. He has had senior position at the Comtel Corporations, Nokia, Siemens, and NCR Corporation. He started his entrepreneurial journey from the touch point. Currently, he's the director of the Jaffer Group, as well as the director of this and the CEO of the Jaffer Business Systems. JBS is one of the oldest IT company of Pakistan, known for the global partnership and for being a purpose-led organization. Under Waqar leadership, the company has moved from a single company to a group of companies with the Blue Tech Consulting, Hisab Kitab, ENA, JBS Incorporations USA, and Impair, making its mark both locally and globally. Waqar is known for being the prominent public speaker and social worker. He also served as a policy board member of the SECP. His success comes due to out-of-box approaches and top-class leadership. He's known for being humble, accessible, and approachable. So he'd be our first speaker, and he would be followed by Dr. Syed Azizur Rab. So the Dr. Azizur Rab introduction is that he's the CEO of the Green Star Social Marketing Pakistan Limited. Dr. Rab is a seasoned business professional with over 30 years of multi-industry experience in the private development and social enterprise sector. He's currently the CEO of the Green Star Social Marketing, an independent network member of the Pakistan Population Services International, Washington, D.C. Prior to joining Green Star, Dr. Rab has been associated with some of the fastest growing premier and local multinational firms. Okay, can you please mute yourself? Okay, so fastest growing premier and local multinational firms like Knoll, DuPont, Novartis, AGP, Feroz Sons, College of Physicians, and Surgeon Pakistan at senior leadership levels. Experience for not-for-profit sector also includes serving the Khan University Hospital as head of the corporate resource development. During his illustrious career spanning more than 2 decades, Dr. Rab has been instrumental in facilitating large public and private companies in developing their strategic insights and competencies pool to achieve their growth aspiration. He has the experience of working with the development partners like BMGF, FCDO, KFW, GFATM, Nutrition International, private US Foundation, and the federal and provincial governments of the country for various social marketing, social franchising, MCH, SRH, sorry, forgive me for these, not familiar with the term, sir, nutrition and NCD programs, along with the systems strengthening through public-private partnership. He has been on the consultant panel of the reputed consultancy and the capacity building firms like Siddharth Hedden, and has been the lead consultant with Octara Private Limited. He's also the internationally recognized motivation speaker and transformational catalyst. Through his extremely popular workshops and large public programs, he has educated and inspired over 30,000 participants in Pakistan and abroad. Dr. Ab, academic affiliation and credentials featured in NCI, Ashid Business Schools, UK, and Dow University of Health Sciences. So, sir, we can take the opportunity of listening you first, followed by Dr. Muqarruz Islam. And the approximate time for one speaker is around 10 minutes. There could be a slippage of like 1 to 2 minutes. This will be followed by a 5 minutes question and answer session. We want to make sure the session is interactive, and over to you. Thank you. Dr. Ab, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I can't see the screen somehow the other.
Okay, I have stopped sharing. So,
great.
Yeah.
Great. First of all, Rabbi Shrahli Sadri Vayassirli Amri Wadil Uqdatam min Lisani Yafqahu Qawli. Yaro, thank you very much for inviting Green Star and myself to this great forum. Very briefly, the company that I work for, 32 saal ho gaye, takriban 32 years, this company has been around, known as Green Star Social Marketing. Most of the people know it by the name of Sab Sitara or Sabas Sitara network. Over the last 32 years, we have trained created an ecosystem in the private sector service providers of about 23,000 service providers who are GPs, LHVs, Hakims, homeopaths. We have also created, Green Star is a hybrid of social marketing and social franchising, and reaching out to almost 200,000 outlets, pan, dhabas, shops, 45,000 chemists, 500 or odd Hakims and homeopaths, and 58,000 pharmacies all over Pakistan. We are into nutrition, family planning, and other areas. Now, we are also known by another brand, which is known as Sati, which is about 80% of the condoms that is sold in Pakistan. Dosto, one of the biggest challenges of this company is that we are a not-for-profit organization, and we have been working for the last 32 years, mostly with the donor money. But with the last 9 years, we have become almost 60% self-sustainable. Rest of our income comes from the donor money, where we try to create an awareness about family planning, nutrition, maternal and child health, menstrual hygiene, breast cancer awareness, diagnosing and reaching out to the TB patients, HIV patients, and so on and so forth. And since we work in an environment which is donor dependent, and we have got very well-defined KPIs and programs which last usually 3 to 5 years, one of the greatest challenge of the organization is the stability of tenure for any employee. That is very, very limited. After 3 years, people have to mostly go. So there is a constant sense of insecurity and lack of attachment. If you were to ask me, what is the single most challenge that Green Star faced over the years, is our ability to attract, develop, motivate, and retain best in the class performers. And in single line, the single most, and I agree with Zaid's excellent slide that he showed, that was about the biggest problem is employee engagement. When you have job insecurity, then obviously employee engagement is really tough. दोस्तों, मोहसिन, हमारे साथ बड़ा हादसा हुआ, हम रह गए, हमारा जमाना गुजर गया. हुआ ये कि while we were creating awareness about family planning and maternal and child health, the animal out there changed. 60% of the population is now youth. And we were working men and women, whereas the actual real world comprised of boys and girls. Second thing that was happening is that we were so focused on getting our programs right, getting our sales in place, getting our numbers. We were a very numbers-driven company. Because KPIs sakht hote hain, donors will take their money away if we don't deliver. But 6-7 years ago, we realized that there's something missing. How do we cater and create an engagement of the employee? and how to attract, develop, motivate, and retain best in the class performers. Because you get excellent people using the competencies framework, which Zahid pointed out, how to attract them, how to have that structured framework of getting the right people in and putting them in the job. Our challenge was that, first of all, you're not able to attract, and then job insecurity created a lot of measures. Over the last 3 years, we have been awarded for working for these, on 3 areas. First category was work-life integration and flexibility and benefits. The second category was community and the government relationship and philanthropy. And the third was service and product development. So while internally taking a step back and reflecting how to be able to deliver and to be able to retain the people who will continue to understand the job, how to convert the talent into lasting performances for our programs. So we learned that it is important to manage programs, but it is more important to manage people who are managing programs and sales. And hence, we started looking at people more closely. First of all, we found out that this organization was so task focused that we were not able to judge people's morale, for example. And please do stop me and ask questions if there are any. I'll be more than glad, so that it's not a one-way thing. And I'm not talking to the screen. We started looking at our people's morale. Why were they leaving us? What were they feeling about the way the job was designed? Because different programs were coming and it creates a lot of confusion about the people that they work with and the organizational policies. And we thought that on a scale of 1 to 10, and we found out that their morale was very, very low, and it was in cyclical fashion. So although we tried to increase their salaries, working conditions was improved, our regional offices were revamped, and they were given better perks, but our retention rate and productivity did not improve. So we started, we learned that we were not a listening organization with our organization. We were so focused on programs and donor deliverables that we were not focused on those who were to deliver those results. And we found out, we did a research, town hall shows, a small little in-house service, and started creating HR business partners from within our team members. And we found out that what really was missing from our work was telling people or giving them the sense of achievement with their job. They were not being recognized. The way their work was designed was flawed, and they did not feel that they were given a task, they were held responsible, but the ability to respond wasn't there with them. And they did not have a sense of moving. पानी भी कहीं रुक जाता है आके तो उसमें बदबू आना शुरू हो जाती है. So we redefined what really is going to motivate our people by doing an internal listening to our people. Flexible working hours were introduced because we then listened what was going on in individual employees' family lives. Then we were also hit by COVID, for example, and that was a great learner for teacher for us. And working from homes was allowed because we could empathize their conditions. The productivity went up. And then on various areas, we were not able to retain younger people. As I said, Mohsin hamare saath bada hadsa hua, hum reh gaye, hamara zamana guzar gaya. Younger people were coming in, staying it for a short while, and the moment they were invited, got a job from Lever Brothers and Procter & Gamble's, they would fly out. So we started educational assistance program and giving them more leeway in those areas. That really, paternity leaves, Hajj leaves, Iddat leaves, they were completely missing from ours. So we did a survey, got on board a good HR manager who could do a survey of our comparator companies, and especially those from where we wanted to attract the talent. And so the convince was a big issue in Karachi. In going from Petalby area to Clifton, this is a big area. So listening to people, engaging in their personal affairs. One of the drastic things that happened is that our organization and people were not aligned. Those who were with the organizations tend to stay for more than 12 years or 15 years. It was not employee engagement, it is because they didn't get good jobs. So we started getting involved. Younger people were given the strategic counseling to develop their own personal life maps. Because एक ऐसा आदमी जिसकी अपनी जिंदगी में जिसको कहीं नहीं जाना, जो पुरानी मॉरिस वॉक्सवैगन की तरह होता है जिसपे स्टिकर लगा होता है, प्लीज डोंट फॉलो मी, आई एम लॉस्ट माई सेल्फ. So वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को कहाँ लेके जाएगा? So we started developing people's maps, especially for the younger people, where they are going, what kind of leeway they would require, how we could assist them. That was and then we were able to share their performances in simple infographics, because appraisal sessions were a nightmare in our company. People hated that. So then we started providing them easily learning portals बनाए हमने, और जिसको easy accessibility लोगों को मिलना शुरू हो गई इसमें. The second area that we worked were on the donors front. While we were working with the community, behavioral change communication is the work in single line that we do in the community for helping people adopt better nutrition, better menstrual hygiene, family planning, compliance to TB therapy. So we introduced or improved better counseling facility in-house and mentoring program within the organization, because people love to go to training programs. They went to those training programs, मगर पन्नी पहन के बैठते थे, trainings करने के बाद वैसे के वैसे वापस आ जाते थे. तो जब उनके काम को आसान बनाया गया by telling them the skills to counsel, doing the behavioral counseling, then we facilitated our suppliers. For example, our service providers network, Sab Sitara, 23,000 service providers. Before we became stable, we wanted our clients to become stable. So we started training them in social entrepreneurship. So once they started becoming sustainable, our business, our work became much easier with the community. And finally, we were able to give people integrated services or consortiums. That means if our people are visiting the families within the communities, within those communities, we created champions, community champions. And that was only achieved by having a whole field force comprising of doctors and counselors who stayed with the company long enough, who in a horizontal platform. So when one program was over, they had the opportunity for job rotation, job enrichment, and job enlargement to be absorbed in another program. So the continuum of work increased their engagement. And I think in rounding it off, our success was not because in the last 9 years that we are about 60% self-sustainable. It's not because we did the smartest things or adopted the smartest technologies. It is because we started becoming probably a learning and listening organization. जहाँ top down के बजाय लोग engage होने लगे, because if you tell them, they will listen. You show them, they'll pay attention. Only when you involve them, they may learn. And hence the journey of Green Star in the last 9 years is that we had started at 233 million. Now we are about 2.5 billion company generating revenues. 60% is self-sufficient. And most of the magic that has come is from the people who have learned to manage. Now we are taking it further down to our area sales managers level and trickling down the HR business partners, creating those leadership competency. एक rep जो 5 साल तक targets करता है, उसको सजा ये मिलती है, उसको boss बना के area sales manager बना दिया जाता है. उस बेचारे को planning, organizing, staffing, leading and control कोई concept नहीं होता है. खुद से काम करना आसान है. So now we are starting a program for developing these leaders before they are given that responsibility as area sales manager, for example, because After all, we are a social marketing company. So employee engagement was increased by listening to our people and uh, involving them in designing their strategies and creating those business partners. In theory, it looks very easy, but remember, we are not for-profit organization. We cannot give you salaries which are, mind-boggling, and we can't even compare with the likes of our legal brothers and others from where we want to attract good people. So, people factor made all the difference. Does it make sense? I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think an excellent summary of your journey. So what I understand from your conversation is that is the engagement part. And I would say it's not the engagement of the employee, but overall stakeholders engagement, which you're concerned about the distributors and overall community, which is part of your value chain. Okay, any question or the comments by the participants? Feel free to get in dialogue, and if you have any question. Okay, Achar, in the interest of time, I'd like to ask just one question. That is that as a CEO, you have seen this journey of ensuring the inputs, as you said, developing the your sales manager with the necessary competencies, and then obviously this is being done with the goal of having the payoff for the organization. And you already highlighted the payoff in terms of the increased your network, increased revenue. So do you also look, how do you basically summarize the, in terms of your overall, the benefit in the tangible benefits, if you have to cite it, how would you describe it? What are the key indicators, particularly in your organization, that you want to look at when you want to see the growth of the people with respect to the organization outcomes?
Okay, it's a very good question, because see, whatever you did, I increased the sales, yes, increased the revenue, improved the bottom line, but we sell condoms and 80% is the COGS now because of the dollar disparity. Our impact is measured in terms of our ability to reduce maternal and child mortality and morbidity. Repeated pregnancies lead to weak mother who in fifth pregnancy, Pakistan में 10 million pregnancies हर साल होती हैं, 4 million unwanted हैं, उस 2.6 million abortions हैं, और हर महीने 1400 औरतें मर जाती हैं क्योंकि they did not have access to a contraceptive like condoms to space pregnancies. So our performance in term for donors and is rated in terms of couple year protection or contraceptive usage rate going up, and we measure it by the sales of our commodities. So there has been a 200% increase in the contraceptive usage rate. It has reduced our operational costs by 36%. That's a big advantage. And the CYP we have been able to sustain. We are now generating from 1.2 to 2.3 million CYP. We are the largest CYP couple year protection generator in terms of, so this is how our results are graded. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic in a way that many times people ask that if they are serving in the social sector or the where there's no financial, you can say, kind of ROI sort of goal setting, so how they can show their outcomes. So there's very strong, I think, evidence of how you can link the performance of the organization or the HR and the overall people management with your bottom line indicator. Of course, every organization has got indicators. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. With this, we would like to move to our next speaker. And we have already brief the participants regarding your profile. Also, it doesn't need any introduction. So, Waqar Islam, we'll be happy to listen to your perspective. Thank you so much for joining us. As I said, I've already introduced you to the audience. So, over to you with regards to the overall what is your concerns for you, the biggest concern in the organization in terms of the business continuity, particularly with regard to the people management. So, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Zaid. Always a pleasure to be with you and talking to HR professionals and possibly business professionals as well. I think the topic that you wanted me to cover is about CEO's expectations from HR, and also what are the things we want to look at in terms of how HR should evolve, right? And that's what I'll try and focus, but I'll also try and address some of the other points that you mentioned in your intro. So I think first thing first, if you are in trouble, if you want to seek an advice, if you have a health issue, not a good example for me, but if you want to do your haircut, where do you go? किसके पास जाते हैं? तो सबसे पहले आप उसको देखते हैं जो आपको बहुत अच्छा जानता है, because he or she is in the best position to give you the advice or to make sure they are able to recommend. Now, in the world of business, what is that one thing that you must absolutely know as well, if not better, than those who are actually doing it? And in a world of business, that's called business, right? So first thing that any CEO expects from HR is to know the business. Don't run away from learning business. Knowing P&L is not a taboo. It's not a bad thing. If you don't know P&L, there is no way in hell you can understand business and serve them beyond typical recruitment and payroll, which is what majority of HR think their role is limited to. So I would first advise every HR professional out there that you have no choice, but if you want to become true HR professional, then you got to move out of your comfort zone, got to learn business, got to learn strategies, business strategies, got to learn P&Ls, got to learn products, got to learn customers, got to learn territories, got to learn portfolio. If you are not willing to do it, you won't be able to serve the business well. So that's my first, if you like, recommendation or concern. Majority of HR, when I talk to them, उनका एक स्टैंडर्ड जवाब होता है, P&L हमारे लिए थोड़ी है यार, ये बिजनेस मैं क्यों समझूं? भाई सबसे पहले आपको समझना है. And I'm saying, and I'd go to the extent of saying more than business people. And I'll come back to why am I saying that. कि आपको बिजनेस के लोगों से ज्यादा इस बिजनेस की समझ आनी चाहिए, right? अच्छा, दूसरी चीज, and linking to what I just said. So there are strategies for business, there are strategies around products, there are strategies around customers, there are strategies around markets, there are strategies around territories, and each one has multiple dimensions which is at play when you are talking about making strategy. But all of it can only be executed if you have an HR strategy. If you don't have an HR strategy, then how will you execute the business strategy? Because business eventually will be driven from HR. How many organizations, and I'm specifically referring to local organizations in our country, have HR strategy? किस तरह का HR होना चाहिए? उसका demeanor कैसा होना चाहिए? उसका development cycle कैसा होना चाहिए? उसकी education कैसी होनी चाहिए? उसका look कैसा होना चाहिए? उसका feel कैसा होना चाहिए? उसका future outlook कैसा होना चाहिए? I don't know if many, and I would say majority, don't maintain any HR strategy. So if you don't have an HR strategy, what is the tool available to drive business strategy? Except for leadership interference in everything rather than system interference. I keep talking about this example. What's, one thing which is different in the global world versus the Pakistani world, and when I talk about global world, I essentially mean the world which is either developed or which is developing in true sense of the word, not just because it's a good word to have. Right? जो एक सबसे बड़ा फर्क है ना हमारे निजाम में और इन मुल्कों के निजाम में, वो निजाम चलते हैं systems and processes first, individuals second, right? So they first invest in building strong systems and processes, and then people part come in or leadership come in to use those systems and processes to take it to the next level. Because we don't invest, in having, in this particular case, HR strategies, HR thought process, HR governance mode in terms of the entire journey from the time they are to be recruited, from the time they are recruited to the time they leave the organization. The whole HR journey has to be mapped. And organizations like that because HR thinks their role starts and ends with recruitment and payroll, right? And sometime now they love to do CSR activities, which is great, but that's a side activity, something that needs to happen, but it doesn't. So unless you have an HR strategy, because that's the most important tool available to the organization to implement the strategy. So unless you have HR strategies, driving business strategies won't happen. And because we trust a lot more in leadership interference in the way we do things, rather than system-driven things, we haven't scaled and we haven't gone to our potential. And I'm using the word mildly, if you like. Third thing, it's always, and I shared this example, my son plays tennis and his backhand was weak, right? He was good, but his forehand was clearly very, very good, but it's the backhand which had problems. And once I went to see him getting coached, and I saw him continuously going towards his forehand, I told him, but that's not your problem. Your problem is the backhand. This is where you need to be focusing, right? Because that's where you need to, if you're spending half an hour on forehand, you got to spend 2 hours on your backhand. Only then you'll get better. So we tend to move more and more towards our comfort zone, which I keep referring to recruitment and payroll. What is not in your comfort zone, which is the business side, which is driving this, devising an HR strategy to implement business, coming up with governance systems and processes across the entire employee journey. जैसे कस्टमर जर्नी होता है ना कि कस्टमर आपके पास कैसे रिक्रूट होगा, उसके बाद उसका एक्सपीरियंस कैसे होगा, किस तरह से वो मैच्योर करेगा, किस तरह से वो नेक्स्ट स्टेज पे जाएगा, किस तरीके से वो इवेंचुअली शायद फिजल आउट कर जाए. उसी तरह से एक एम्प्लॉय जर्नी भी होता है. हमने एम्प्लॉय जर्नी को कभी मैप ही नहीं करते. How the entire employee journey has to move from the time is to be recruited or and eventually when you leave. So must get out of your comfort zone. Recruitment and payroll are ticket to the game, but they don't win you the game. What wins you the game is learning the business and coming up with HR strategy and learning how to drive HR strategy to success. I think there's another thing, and this is very specific to the times we are living now. And it is important that we talk about it. Every generation is different, right? The bloomers, which was my generation or which is my generation, is ridiculously different to the millennials. Millennials are ridiculously different to the Gen Zs. And now you have the alphas and the Gen X and whatnot. And I'll share an interesting example with the audience of, again, my home, where I have a 17-year-old now and a 23-year-old. So they are 6 years apart, right? And they were having an argument about 8-9 months ago on some topic, right? So imagine the difference in their age is 6 years only, right? And eventually the elder one left the argument, and his exit statement to the argument was, "Yaar, main tumhari generation se relate nahi kar sakta." And this was like shocker to me. 6 years difference, and they think these are two different generations, right? You cannot solve the problems of my generation with the approaches of next generation. If you want to solve today's generation problem, you got to learn solutions which meets their problem. But to do that, you got to understand the problems of the current generation, which is very different to ours. I mean, they are a lot more impatient compared to our generation. हमारे यहाँ, और अगर हमारे वालिदैन पे चले जाएं, तो वो तो एक जगह शुरू होते थे, वहीं से कहते थे, वो जैसे बेटी को उस जमाने में रुखसत करते हुए कहा जाता था कि बेटा अब तुम्हारा जनाजा उठेगा, तो उसी तरीके से इस बंदे ने एक कंपनी ज्वाइन की, वो कहता था जब मेरा जनाजा निकलेगा वहीं से उसकी बाद बाहर आऊंगा. दिस वाज द जनरेशन दैट वी यूज्ड टू हैव. And now they're saying, man, if it's 1 year, that's a lifetime for me, right? I want to move on from 1 year to next year to next year to next year, right? I don't have time. So if you are trying to solve this generation problem with the solutions of my generation, it ain't working. हम अपने मुल्क में भी इस वक्त एक बहुत एक अजीब सी कैफियत है. And you know the whole country is in a एक हैजानी सी कैफियत है. But what is the core issue? In my view, the core issue is that the country is trying to solve this generation's problem with my generation solution. And they are not working, and they won't work, because when 64% of your population is either millennials or Gen Z or now Gen Alpha, then bloomers are irrelevant now. And that's exactly true with the institutions. जब आप organizations पे आएंगे तो 2030 में मेरी generation के लोग तो lead नहीं कर रहे होंगे organization. 2030 में या शायद 2026, 27, 28 में तो millennials lead कर रहे होंगे. तो अगर हम bloomers की तरीके से companies चलाते रहेंगे, हम ready नहीं होंगे HR point of view से 2028 और 2030 के लिए. That is why if you look at all the big companies which are coming up globally, they are changing their entire HR processes and systems around the Gen Zs and the millennials. And they are moving. So we used to have the years, if you like, where everything was to be tracked. Then it moved to quarters. Then it moved to months. Now it is weeks. And I'm not talking about, organizations which are small. I mean, I'm talking about large organizations which have moved in that direction. So that's the other thing. Please don't solve today's problem with the approaches of last generation. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in any case, I consider my generation in this country as a wasted generation, but my generation is done and dusted. It is this generation that we need to prepare for the future. And lastly, and I think this is extremely important to understand, and again, not just in the context of the world, but also in the context of how things to be done. I think a lot of time, because of the way we think, because of cultural thing, हम समझते हैं हमने बंदे को हायर किया हुआ है और वो जब तक ठीक है जब तक मेरी नजरों के सामने बैठेगा. So I've hired him for an 8 to 5 job, and he got to be in front of me at 8 and he got to leave at 5, or in many cases he can sit till 10, but he has to be here at 8 still, right? I have not hired people to give me 8 hours or 10 hours. I have hired people to give me the outcome for which they are hired. So start building organizations around outcome. Start building organizations around trust. Outcomes will come when you trust an employee that he will deliver when he's not in front of you, because you've given him enough professionalism that they understand the difference between ethical behavior and unethical behavior. They understand the importance of performance, because if they perform, they will progress. If they don't perform, the system is such that it will come out that they are bad students, as in the case of schools and colleges, and bad students either get relegated or terminated, or they don't progress fast enough, right? That's the way things need to work out. So your entire HR strategy and thought process need to evolve from body in seat mentality, 4 eyes principle, कि जब तक मेरी नजरों के सामने है काम करेगा. इंटरेस्टिंगली ना हमारे यहाँ एम्प्लॉय भी ये कहता है कि जब तक बॉस मेरा सामने है मैं काम करूंगा, जब वो हट जाएगा मैं इंटरनेट पे लग जाऊंगा. सो और जब तक हम इस सिंड्रोम से बाहर नहीं निकलेंगे, हम स्ट्रगल करेंगे एचआर के साथ, और हम स्ट्रगल करेंगे अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन स्केल करने के लिए. सो जस्ट बिफोर आई कंक्लूड एंड देन वी कैन टेक एनी क्वेश्चंस इफ देयर आर एनी. Move out of your comfort zone, learn business, build organizations for outcome. एक और point, HR के लोग सेल्स के लोग होते हैं, so सेल्स को टैबू ना समझो, ठीक है? You got to learn how to package, how to position the organization, how to position the reward system, how to position the career, how to position employee journey, how to position and package the whole organization so employees are excited to join and carry on with their journey in the organization. So learn to be salespeople. Right. And
Thank
that will happen once you learn to be business people, right? Thank you very much. I can take questions.
Thank you so much for, I think, highlighting very pertinent points. So I think some of the things that emerged clearly from your discussion is the business acumen, the HR strategy, and the diversity, particularly you emphasize the generation diversity. That's fantastic. So interestingly, all these three competencies are part of the global HR competency standard. And so there's already, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's already a mechanism how to, integrate those things and what are the things that can be done. Okay, so we take one question and I would request short answer in the interest of the time. So one of the candidate participant is asking, what could be a starting point to have the kind of a strategy on the generation diversity? So
first is to understand the generation, accept they are different, right? Accept that they have different needs, they have different ways of looking at it, they have different approaches to life compared to what it is. देखिए, जब तक आप समझेंगे नहीं, आप solution नहीं निकाल सकते. So I would recommend ये सोचना कि चूंकि एक चीज मेरे जमाने में चलती थी, वो आज भी चलनी चाहिए. That's the biggest fallacy we need to get out. What worked in my time may be very good, but it may not be relevant today, right? Because 10 years ago, social media didn't exist, more or less. Now it's a different world. So we got to move towards understanding the people and generation first. Only then you will start to evolve strategies. And in many cases, as I said, दुनिया में काम हो चुका है बहुत सारा. आपको कोई reinvent करने की जरूरत नहीं है. सिर्फ बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस को अडॉप्ट करना शुरू कर दें. पाकिस्तान में ये भी बड़ी बीमारी है कि हम समझते हैं कि हम कोई मरीख के मुल्क है. अगर दुनिया में एक चीज चलती है तो पाकिस्तान में भी चलेगी. इम्प्लीमेंट तो करें, right? So all the work on generations have happened. All we need to do is to take those best practices and start to implement it. Don't solve current generation problem with my generation solutions. They won't work.
True. So if I think recall, while I was serving as a practitioner in an organization, and we were discussing the launch of a medical benefit, where the perception regarding the utility of that benefit at the top tier was altogether different than the entry level. So it's true that once we make the decision, as you said, with the, you can say the baby boomers or even generation X, Y, we should not solve the problem of generation Z. Of course, we have to coexist, but taking everyone's perspective into account is important, definitely. Okay, with this, we move on to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Waqar, for always adding value to the capacity building of the HR. Our next speaker is Memosh Khwaja. And Waqar, it's your choice, depending upon your commitment and availability. If you want to stay on the call, most welcome. Otherwise, even if you want to drop off, please proceed as per your convenience. Okay, so Memosh Khwaja is the president and CEO of the Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. He's been the international, been in the international business and sustainability leader with 16 years of CEO and global director experience. He has worked in Pakistan with both Unilever and Halib, and the Middle East and Europe with Henkel. Memosh has a board designation on the climate and ESG, and has also advised on the adopting strategy and building capacity on the sustainability for corporates. He has also been engaged in the social impact project with IFC World Bank and UNHCR in both Pakistan and in the Middle East, and also serves an independent director on the local international boards. He is an MBA from Lahore University of Management Sciences and has obtained his executive leadership training in strategy and innovation from MIT Sloan School of Management. So over to you, Memosh. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you, Zahid. I hope you can all hear me well. Pleasure to be with all of you. And I was really intrigued by the insights shared by the previous two speakers. I think wonderful insights of personal experiences. And I think it will be quite interesting because message to the group here is probably leading from the same discussions. But before I talk about the top topics on CEO's minds, so PICG, which I am currently heading in Pakistan, is basically a research, advisory, and capacity building institute for the boards and C-suite executives in corporates. So therefore, we engage with this group a lot in terms of determining what is going on in their heads and what's really the need of the hour, so that we can actually convert that into our advisory and capacity building services. Basically, what I'm going to say, I'm going to try to focus on one main theme that is emerging. But that one main theme that is emerging in CEOs' minds is coming from the fact, which Zahid, you also pointed out right in the first slide, is that there's this is the era of disruption. This is the era of very rapid disruption. Things at global level and local level have started to change so rapidly that disruption is not unusual, it's the norm now. And this disruption in the ecosystems and in the business world is mainly coming from the fact that of three main drivers. One is the information technology development that's happening at a very rapid pace, and this is probably going to be the next generation of information technology development, which is going to disrupt the world and is requiring businesses to move very quickly on that front. So that's number one. And number two is of course, which was also on your list, but in my list, it is one of the top topics, which is the whole climate and environmental disruption that's taking place. And Pakistan is for sure at the forefront of this issue. So the environmental and social issues that are coming up, take it as COVID or take it as the climate issues, are really disrupting the ways we work as well. So that's causing disruption at the same time. And the third bit, which you put up right at the top, is also in my list, is one of the key issues, is the whole competition and the hunt and the war for talent. So I also align with you on this topic, that this is one of the main reasons why disruption is taking place. And I think my previous speakers also talked about the generations that have changed. But I suppose, in my view, this generation change is probably being interfered by all these other changes that are happening. And therefore, it's not about decades that these generations change. It's much faster. So the whole topic of managing this competition for talent is disrupting. So what do all these disruptions require CEOs to do today? And this is coming out as the common theme, and that really is for the organizations of today and tomorrow to be more agile. So agility is the topic that CEOs are looking at more and more so. And the reason why I point out this more is, again, not from an HR perspective, but from a business structure perspective. We've had this era of organizations who have ruled the world for the last 30, 40 years, and they have been pretty much formed around a certain notion of how value is generated and organizations are developed. But that notion is now changing, and these are and the organizations that are going to lead in tomorrow's world are going to be a lot more different, and they're already different today. And the key characteristic of these companies is agility. And since it's about organization, therefore it points to the CHROs, the HR community, as for them to be the lead partners of the CEO in terms of shaping this organization agility and taking it forward as a key success factor for organization success. Now, what does agility mean and what does agility require? I think there's also a question about what is it that we should do towards it. So there are a couple of factors. I'm just going to run through some of the key pointers that I think are part of it. It's obviously, it's obviously a lot. You can discuss this in detail, but I'll start from strategy. So strategy in the past, as when we have also learned it, has always been about vision and objectives and mission. And every organization today has a vision and mission. And this is what's been going on for the last 30 years. And basically, we've always addressed the point about what is our business and how do we want to, what are our targets and how do we want to get there. But no one has in the past talked about why are you in this business. So this whole notion of purpose is becoming so important. Purpose is essentially, why are you in this business? Why do you do this business? So you need to have, there's a clear alignment that we need to have a clarity about why are we in the business that we are in. That is the starting point in strategy. If you have not defined your purpose, then you probably are looking at a future where you may not exist. I mean, obviously everybody has a purpose to make money, or you say, okay, we are here in the business to make money, but purpose goes beyond that, and you have to really define if there is a, if there's a purpose beyond money that you are fulfilling as well. Is there a meaning to your whole business? So that is something that the HR community has to help their organizations to define. And at the same time, this whole strategy business is all about really being quick in terms of sensing and seizing opportunities, because as disruptions come, the opportunities are also going to come at the same speed. So being able to sense and seize opportunities, this is going to be one of the key hallmarks for organizations which are agile. Now, when it comes to HR specifically, there's a big topic of structure. So I think the structures of today and tomorrow are also, they need to be different. So typically we're used to an organization structure which is very, very hierarchical. Of course, the top and then the boxes and then the layers. So now the thought process is that this hierarchy-driven structure is probably not what is the requirement for the future. And similarly, the leadership, which typically used to sit on the top, needs to be not at the top, but needs to be somewhere in the center. And it's basically the role that you need to be more of a person who steers businesses, but not really controls the businesses. So not just the top leader, but leader of every function, etc. So you need to be able to steer the business and empower your teams. I think we heard this word before, empower your teams to perform rather than control them. So that's one of the key differences in structure that's happening. And the other aspects of structure, of course, that be more action driven. So you need to be able to empower and get action, because when you want to be agile, you want to be able to take quick action as well. It's not so much that you are just into sort of control. You can't control it. You need to be able to empower. The third aspect of this agility is process. So the processes that exist in the company, in large organizations, typically process is very important. So I think Mr. Vakar spoke about this process part. We set up systems and processes. So the previous 30 years, every company has aspired to develop the best processes in place. But those processes probably stifle the organizations more today than they make them agile. So tomorrow's processes need to be also different. I remember that in our organizations, we used to have fantastic product launch protocols, and you need to have the whole process followed to be able to launch something new. And it took a while to launch something. But today we talk about launch first and then learn how it went, rather than being too perfect about what you want to launch. So get going with it, get moving with it. So in every aspect of your business, you need to be able to experiment and move and learn and do more iteration, experimentation, rather than trying to be perfect. That's one of the key hallmarks of your processes. Continuous learning, very HR-driven issue. Provide continuous learning to your organizations. You should find a way that we are more learning-oriented than more perfection-oriented. Action, I already spoke about. We need to make sure that action is at the center of your focus. Lastly, I think I would repeat what was said before. This outcome-based approach is what is required today, rather than input-based approach. So don't make your company's targets on the inputs. How many hours have you put in? How many X number of calls you've made? Because that's not the outcome you're looking for. So you need to really focus more on the result when you set your KPIs and targets, rather than more on the inputs, which was the trend in the past. So not control-driven, but result-driven. So that's some of the key highlights of what a good process should look like. The fourth aspect of my agility description is about the people themselves. What kind of people do you hire? What kind of talents do you look for? So here, because it's very purpose-driven, we need to look at culture. So I think cultural fit is one of the important topics that remains today. Every organization should build its hiring priority around building a culture, because you want to make a community, you want to make more empowerment. So you need people to buy into your culture so that they could go out and take action accordingly. Leadership also needs to be not controlling and not decision making as such, but more, as we say today, more servant leadership. So you need to define leaders who are more, customer driven or service oriented, servant driven. So the purpose of a leader is to serve the rest of the team around them and not to control them. So that's they provide this whole atmosphere and the ecosystem through which the other players can act. So look for that servant leadership. And finally, of course, the entrepreneurial drive is absolutely key when you're looking for people. And a very important point, lastly, is ownership. So absolute ownership of people of their whole work. This is a key attribute that we look for in people. Ownership, which is basically an intrinsic passion for their work, self-driven, and they take it right to the end. And this comes from the buy-in into the cultural fit and intrinsic passion for work and wanting to belong to a purpose. So those sort of aspects are what people should be looking for when they are recruiting. And finally, I think I will not spend some more time on this, but it's more about the technology aspect. This is of course already well discussed. That technology is going to be also key. It's not going to be the old infrastructures. It's not going to be the architectures of the past. It's going to be an evolving infrastructure that will be required, which is a tough challenge for people today, because people invest in certain technologies and they expect paybacks over 10 years, 15 years to keep paying back, but it requires more evolving technology today. So it's evolving and it's also enabling. The technology has to be enabling itself to provide the rest of the things that I just said earlier up. That technology should enable quick reactions, should enable quick action, quick decision making for organizations to be agile. So that, in summary, is my take on the whole topic. Today's need is agility, and HR being a key partner for the CEOs to bring forward an agile organization. And some of the characteristics that I've explained are what are required from the community. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So I think very effective summary of your overall experience in terms of the constantly changing phenomena and causing disruption, and the disruption needing more agility. And then, of course, having a right person for the right job and right time and right cost. You talk war for talent. So those are some of the key takeaways. I was just trying to look at the HR Competency Standard, because as we said that this model is already existing and there are people worldwide who are successfully using it. So all these things figure out. You talked about the outcomes. This is the first. The business acumen comes first, and then using the analytics or the impact to demonstrate your outcomes is a key competency within the HR management. So the world largest HR association has done plenty of research, and that's the interesting part, that the sentiments of the industry exactly are aligned with what is being required at the global level. So thank you so much. There's one question. I'll request a short answer from your side. One of the participants saying that what should be the order of development. So assume, as you're already doing a development of the, I think, industry and the governance framework. So from an organization perspective, if you have to develop the capacity of the HR, what would be your starting point in terms of building the competency? What do you think is the most critical?
I'm not sure if this question was addressed to me, but I think this was probably...
It was addressed to previous speakers, but in the interest of the time, that's why I deferred this question to you.
Right. I mean, I think when an organization is coming together, it has to have, like I said, it has to start with its own purpose, its own why they're in the business, what they aim to achieve out of the business, and of course, the people aspect is the key determinant of that strategy that they'll put together. What kind of people they want, what kind of organization they want, etc., etc. So I mean, if I was to give a very black and white answer, I would say your organizational purpose comes first, and then comes your values, and then comes the culture, and then comes, you know, the whole type of people you require. So it's somehow, it's very closely linked, but it's one of the determinants of your whole business success.
Super. Thank you so much once again. So we with this move now to the next speakers, Sadar Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr, thank you so much for your availability. I know you are due for another commitment also, so thank you for staying on the call. Brief introduction. Sadar Abu Bakr has 20 plus years of learning and exploring in multinational countries across Europe and Asia. Recipient of the Global Innovation Award from ITU for digital accelerator work with startups. Member of Overseas Chamber Digital and DEI committees, and founder of the Women Inspiration Network program. We're glad to have a group and OPCO exposure in the senior leadership roles across fintech, telecom, and consulting in the customer-centric digital service, finance, marcom, corporate strategy, digital transformation, merger and acquisition, strategic partnership, and controls. He has been fortunate to have worked with the great teams at Rakami Digital Bank, one of the only 5 digital retail banking license winners from the State Bank of Pakistan, beyond including the Mobilink, Pakistan largest branchless microfinance bank, Telenor, including Group in Norway and Pakistan, and cable and wireless communication at PwC. So Abu Bakr, over to you without any further delay. Thank you so much once again.
Assalamu alaikum, Zaid Saab. Thank you for the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I know it's pretty late on a Friday evening, so I'm not sure how many people are going to be tuned in, but I hope you get to enjoy some time off with family and have a good weekend as well. So I'm going to try and keep it short. I think from an HR perspective, and then when you look at, you know, what a CEO or a CBO looks for, is first for HR to create a very authentic reason as to why should someone join the enterprise. Kyun aaye aapke paas? And trust me when I say this, it's not a good enough reason to say कि यार वो किधर जाएंगे बच्चे क्योंकि और opportunities ही नहीं है market में. If we have this kind of a mindset that we're going to always shortchange our employees because we believe that the opportunities in the marketplace are few and far between, तो फिर आपके पास लोग भी उसी point of view से आएंगे. देखिए, अगर if you expect employees to have loyalty to an organization and to be fully invested in that organization, you need to reciprocate. People see through words and lack of action over a period of time. So I think let's start with the basics. In many HR organizations or HR philosophies, we need to really break down and answer the question as to why should someone join, and then why should someone stay, and what is it that we expect of that resource during the time that they do stay actually. The second thing is for us to actually define, and for HR organizations to define, who are our people. देखिए, बहुत सी organizations में ना, unfortunately, the interaction of customers with the senior leadership team is very minimal. It's very minimal. Let's tell the truth here, right? Who do the customers know? The customer knows the person who sells the product, so usually the sales team. The customer knows the person who picks up the call in the call center. The customer knows the person who comes over to fix the problem. And in most organizations or many organizations, these are outsourced functions. And that's okay. You have to keep in key competencies in-house generally. But अगर वो outsourced functions है, और आपके एक basic minimum wage या basic standards of HR practices उन पे applicable ही नहीं किया आपने. आपने अपने contractual workers or third party workers को बिल्कुल differently treat किया है. So then actually in essence, business leaders and HR leaders need to understand that those people are the ones who are creating the impression of the organization towards your actual customers. If you were to ask today, and I am willing to bet on this, and I'm not a betting person, but still, you know, for the sake of discussion, if you were to ask the people today, कि आज बताएं कि of all the organizations that are represented on this call, myself included, मुझे बताएं जो listeners हैं कि हमारी CTOs के क्या नाम है organizations का, या हमारे CHRO का क्या नाम है, या हमारी ये जो सारी organizations हैं हमारी जहाँ के हम speakers हैं, उनके GCBO का क्या नाम? I am willing to suggest, based on data, that less than half of the audience would know. But the audience would know who pitched solutions of these companies to them. The audience would know who has come to resolve their problems and who picks up the call or who answers on a digital proposition. And I think it's really, really imperative that while HR establish a reason for joining, a reason to stay, and is also able to establish basic HR norms for your extended teams that actually serve your customers. And I think this is where you are able to differentiate your brand from others as well. Another thing which I think is really, really important is for HR functions to be able to put your foot down and pick your battles. I really mean that. Differentiating between leadership and expertise is a very important aspect. Having basic functional know-how is a prerequisite to get anywhere. आपकी अगर basic understanding या knowledge नहीं है, तो फिर आप deserve ही नहीं करते roles. लेकिन basic understanding या deep functional expertise does not make you a leader. And I'm really, really sorry to say that we need to be able to put our foots down and differentiate that. Because experts only, जो कि leadership traits को embody नहीं करते, do not deserve to be in leadership positions. Now, this is a very, very difficult conversation to be had within an organization. Because sometimes we think that organizations are machines, लेकिन असल में organizations living organisms होती हैं. These are people of 20, 30, 40 years, 10 years of experience coming from diverse backgrounds. It's a living, dynamic, diverse organism. And it's really important to be able to then differentiate leadership potential from expert craft potential. And I believe that's important for another reason. Many of us, myself included, have something that is called an unconscious bias. I will come on and I will say some really nice words as I'm saying, right now. And I may not know how I act when the call actually ends. And I go and actually decide to sit in my office with the door closed. और अगर कोई बच्चा या यूथ आके कोई अच्छा आइडिया देता है, तो my modus operandi अगर ऐसा हो जाता है कि default setting कहता है कि यार इसको क्या पता. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. So being able to make sure that we are aware of our unconscious biases, we invest in leadership traits, we invest in leadership values, is the key ingredient for the success of organizations. और the reason अक्सर कि इसको undermine या understate किया जाता है वो क्यों है? क्योंकि हम आज तक HR का business case सही तरह justify नहीं कर पाते. What is the true business case of the right talent being hired, retained, promoted, developed? When we look at business cases, and I come from a finance background originally before moving into other roles, we look at the number of FTEs, the number of project resources, salary cost, L&D cost. We are unable to look at opportunity costs. And I think in the age of AI that we are talking about now, for God's sake, we should be able to update the way we look at business cases for HR. There is a big downside of a toxic culture, of toxic leadership traits. There is a big downside of unconscious bias. There is a big downside कि आपकी disparity बहुत हो, कि आपके third party contractors की minimum wage की जिम्मेदारी आपकी नहीं है, आपके sales force के पास basic health insurance ना हो, और आपके कॉल सेंटर एजेंट्स का तो कुछ वैसे ही कोई लेन देन वाला ना हो, लेकिन वही आपके कस्टमर्स के साथ इंटरैक्ट कर रहे हैं सारे ग्रुप्स. So I think these are important. A couple more things. I really do believe that it is time now where we look at the balance of having certain L&D budgets at a central level, क्योंकि जो organization wide skills programs हैं, वो ongoing basis पे जो organization wide हैं, that it should continue to be the territory of HR, because unless we are agile on soft skills and functional skills, we will be left behind. Yet to no-brainer. But all other functional trainings, L&D budgets should be decentralized. Democratize authority. The leader of a team should and must know कि उसकी टीम की डेवलपमेंट नीड्स क्या हैं across education, experience and exposure, and he or she must have the budgets to support it. अगर हम उन्हें ट्रस्ट नहीं करते कि ये वेस्टफुल स्पेंडिंग करेंगे, इसका मतलब है कि हमने ठीक लोग रखे ही नहीं। बिकॉज अगर ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट इतना ज्यादा है कि हम कहते हैं कि कंप्लीट L&D बजट्स हमारे पास होंगे, तो दैट इंप्लाइज कि वी डू नॉट ट्रस्ट द लीडर्स टू मेक द राइट डिसीजन। सो माय प्रेमिस और मेरी दरख्वास्त ही है कि जो हमारे कंपनी वाइड स्किल्स प्रोग्राम्स है वो हम रखें एट अ सेंट्रल लेवल एंड देन डिसेंट्रलाइज एंड डेमोक्रेटाइज your L&D budgets. Two more points I just want to quickly make. One point that I want to make is around the ability for HR functions and all business leaders to be connected to employees. देखें, आप best strategy बना सकते हैं. You can make the best strategy according to your digital age. If you are not authentic, if you are not sincere, if you cannot be empathetic, you will face resistance and people will see through you. Achha, it doesn't mean that you become the most popular person. I'm not saying that. वो किसी ने मेरे एक former boss थे, उन्होंने कहा था कि यार, if you want to be popular, become an ice cream seller rather than a leader. I agree. Authentic, sincere, connected to employees से क्या होता है? उससे ये होता है कि अगर आपने मुश्किल conversation भी करनी है ना, तो उस मुश्किल conversation में भी आसानी आ जाती है. Because people believe you. They may not always like what you're saying, but they know that you still are doing it from the right place. So I think in these times, while we talk about the need for us to look at organizational strategy, which is key, I think the need for leaders and HR to be connected, truly connected to your employees is important. And the KPI for that is not कि आपको क्या लगता है कि आप कितने connected हैं, it's to actually ask the people around you. I think the last point I want to make is the need for us to have diverse backgrounds in all functions now, not just HR, but including HR. अगर आप finance के function देखें, तो finance professionals तो चाहिए, वरना tax, accounting, audit, reporting, payables, treasury, M&A कौन करेगा? But you should have one or two people or a few people in finance who are from a non-finance background. Develop the incentive models to get them in. In HR, we should be able to promote an HR track for sales leaders as well. Why shouldn't someone from sales or business or technology be in HR for a while? When you surround yourself with people with the same background, or agar usme business, technology, finance, strategy ki understanding represented nahi hai, how can we possibly expect good outcomes? So I think having a diverse background is important. And lastly is agility. Too many of our HR models, हम कहते तो हैं agility, but अगर इसको operationalize कर दें आप, too many of our HR models are based on annual bonus, annual performance appraisal, JDs that will be updated once every 3 years, alignment with strategy that will be updated once every 2-3 years. Why can we not adopt what is called going dynamic? Why cannot we know what our long-term picture is, which we need to, but why can we not align with, projects over the next quarter? Why can't our incentive models, some of our incentive models at least, be aligned to quarterly sprints or monthly sprints? Why should we not then have the empowerment to reward people right there and then, and give feedback or constructive feedback to people right there and then? So the agility of those models, agility of our L&D, agility of our comp and ben, agility of our KPIs and balanced scorecards, operationalization is important. If you do these things, but then specially answer the first question and of why a person should join and why a person should stay, and if you can actually carve that vision, who in their right mind, what talented person would not want to work for that organization? And if a talented person wants to then work for that organization, is engaged with that organization, it is impossible that the business case will not stack up. Those are my views.
Thank you so much. I think very kind of new thinking that you have infused. Obviously, it's sort of a good alert, I would say, in a way that I was trying to recall my own experience there. As you said, we deal with the companies, but we don't know about the company. We know about the touch points, and once the companies, they do not own those people at the touch points, it's a great loss to their customer service. And that's one of the reasons that worldwide the index on the customer service is constantly on the declining side. So yeah, very rightly said. On the top of that, you also mentioned, in addition to some of the things that have already been highlighted, like the agility, but you reinforce in your own language, very beautifully done. You talked about the leadership development, the commitment, engagement, and very rightly said that focusing on the business case in a way that the HR can demonstrate the impact and outcome for the stakeholders, not just in the form of the activity. So thank you so much, Abu Bakr. I know you're also busy, committed for another engagement, so we would not like to have I think we can have the question answered some other occasion. So with this, we will move on to another speaker. Thank you for your participation. And okay, so next speaker with us is now Ms. Sahibzadi Mahin Khan. Mahin, thank you so much for your patience. She is the patron and founder president, Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kurangi, and she's a chief executive officer with almost 2 decades of experience with a demonstrated history of working in the corporate and the public sector, skilled in the entrepreneurship, leadership, business development, product development, and the business strategy, strong business development professional with a master's in business administration management from the Institute of Business Management. Mahin Khan founded her entrepreneurial venture, MK & Co., a premier business consultancy firm in 2016, which has consulted for renowned industry players and other government organizations in the realm of capacity building, training, public relations, corporate event management, large-scale investment projects, and providing turnkey solutions to the clients. A company specialized in joint venture projects. Mahin is the director of the Winterland Pakistan Indoor Ice and Snow Theme Park, which is her signature successful joint commercial venture. Currently, she's owner of the FPCCI Center Standing Committee on the Diplomatic Affairs in 2012, and recently nominated an executive council member of SARC Chamber Women Entrepreneurs Council for the term 2023-24. Mahin brings with her the strong corporate experience from working on a diverse field such as the finance, media. She has been engaged with notable financial institutions such as Union Bank, ABN AMRO, Royal Bank of Scotland, and Faisal Bank. Due to her vast experience, career of the business dynamics, and the amicable personality, Mahin has also hosted various shows on the local mainstream channels. Mahin is the SEC certified director, has also attended various programs and workshops, including Southeast Asia Leadership Academy, trains a trainer, National Security Workshop, National Media Workshop, and National Defense College, and Maritime Security Workshop, and Pakistan Navy War, National Workshop. So over to you, Mahin. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you so much, Zahid Saab. First of all, is my voice clear enough? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak on this prestigious forum of yours. And the previous speakers, they gave an amazing insights on the close to the reality, what is happening in the organization. And I would like to, start with something very close to my heart, the HR issues, because I have a diversified experience. I would start, it was a transformation from a structured organization, which is a banking system, financial institution, to transforming into a business owner, where I have different experiences, and I'll let you know how. So first of all, the most important HR issue that I believe is critical for cultivating a sustainable business is talent management. Finding the right people for the right job. At every time I have noticed this is the major issue. If I talk about my banking time way back, I would say that if I was still working for the financial institution, I would have gone for some key capabilities for CHRO, like strategic vision. I would say they would align all my business strategies with my the overall organization strategies. The similar then I would have gone for is data-driven decision making. How they would have put our data, foreseen it, planned it out, for future driving the organizational success. And the most important thing would be the change in leadership, because the bank which I work for, ABN AMRO, continuously went into a change. It got taken over by RBS in 2010, and then in 2011 it was acquired by Faisal Bank Limited. So that was the most challenging time for a CHRO to have a continuous change leadership, and the same would go for employee experience focus. Because why I would say it was a challenging for them, because we were going from a multinational bank to be taken over by a local bank, and there was a vast difference, and we as an employee were very much concerned about how our workplace culture would collaborate, how we would be like that. So I think that was the HR's foremost concern for employee well-being. And then at the same time, we would be like, I would consider that learning and development was also one of those important tasks for them. And this was also one of the important things. How would you design, implement effective learning throughout our careers? Because we had seen transformations, and obviously the needs of the learning and development keeps on changing, and you need to be updated with them. And the foremost important would be diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And that is what I've seen still over the years. It's been more than 15 years. This is the same issue. Previously, what I've seen 15 years back, the CHROs or the organizations are facing all these 6 issues now also. And if I talk about this has been more challengeable for them. They've learned, they've done a lot of wonders, because CHRO needs to be continuously, he's the person who needs to be continuously on a learning curve. Then the previous one of the speakers said the outcome should be very much focused. Now I would like to compare these. This, what I spoke about, has been a challenging for a very structured organization. Now, when I'm into a manufacturing companies and 2 different companies, as in I'll talk about 2 different companies. One is a manufacturing confectionery industry, and the other one I'm going to talk about is creativity as service, or you may call an entertainment industry. CHRO, we would look that the CHRO needs to understand the business. Manufacturing business is very different from a creative industry business. The people who have been working for both the industries have different needs, different requirements. So that's how they need to learn on the business, the need of the employees, what they require, and how will they manage. I'll put it a very simple way. It's very easy, I would say, to work for a structured professional organization where we have a very beautiful organogram, the structure, organization charts, which I've already worked for in industry, financial industry. But if you're starting a business which is into a startup or an SME business, it's quite challenging, because when you're working for an organization, they already have a developed infrastructure, and you just, the CHROs or the HR would go make certain changes, will cope up. But coming to this new businesses where they're into a startup stage or as an SME stage, it's very difficult. I'm talking about from my personal experience. When we would like to have some people from HR, they go by the book. They want to practice what they've learned. I agree with Zahid Saab, all the best practices are there within, and they just need to reinvent, or maybe they need to see what is good with the particular organization needs. Similar way, if I talk about my Winterland staff, they have different needs and totally different from the professional, structured, and it's a very challenging job. When I go to the manufacturing company of mine, we manufacture warmer sleeves. We just need semi-skilled or labor class. Their needs are very different. and what we consider is the HR people have to learn or develop, come out of the box. They need to be very creative when it comes to this, what best practices would be fitting in the industry, need of the people, what they require. So I would say continuously the environments are changing, and the most important thing is the cultural difference. One of my Winterland, if we talk about Winterland, one of the ventures is in Karachi, and the other venture is in Lahore. What we see, there's a vast difference of cultural behavior within the employees in Punjab and in Sindh. So I'm sure the CHRO has to come up with some policies and practices which adjust to the areas, the Punjab side and the Sindh side. So this is most what I have learned throughout my career, and I'm sharing with you. I've also worked with the best HR leaders when I was with the banking sector. And that need has been very different from what we have experiences now this time. Most of the my previous speakers have also mentioned routine, structured practices, and that's what we get to know in this organization as a best practice, but not in the startups and the businesses which we are developing. So any of the questions I would like to take, Raisa, between with the audience, if there are any. So
Yeah.
I would like it to be very interactive at this time.
Yeah,
Are there
sure.
any questions?
Okay,
They
is
could
there
put-
a question toward Mahim on what she has said or anything beyond that? Okay, interestingly, no question. I think so. We move to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Mahim. I think for
Thank you. Thank you.
list of your
Thank you.
areas in a very nice manner. And our next speaker now, we are left with the three speakers, Adi Ramani, Bakar Ahmed, and Talha. So all three speakers, my request would be so you understand there's already a drift of the time. So anything like if it is possible, we can manage your thoughts in like 5 to 7 minutes. It would help everyone to so that we can manage the webinar in terms of concluding at sort of on time, right? So our next speaker is Adi Ramani. He is the head of Human Resources, Pakistan Petroleum Limited. He's MBA by qualification and acquired further knowledge and skills through various international management development programs, including management diploma from IMD Switzerland and other leadership programs from Austria, Belgium, Spain, Romania, Netherlands, Malaysia, Singapore, UAE, and UK. Adi Ramani is a seasoned human resource professional with over 26 years of rich experience with major multinational and national oil and gas exploration and production organization, including Union Texas Petroleum, British Petroleum, OMV Pakistan, and Pakistan Petroleum Limited. Currently, Adil is a heading HR function responsible for HR, IR, and medical services of over 2,500 direct employees. He's also part of the PPL Executive Committee and president of the PPL Staff Club. He's confident that his prestigious international certification, which he's acquired quite recently, SHRM SCP. This is based on the same competency framework that I talked about. He expects that will enhance his capability and add value to his contribution to the success of the organization. So, Adil, thank you so much. Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Zahid, for inviting me. So before getting into the details of the HR issue, I would like to tell you about the organization where I'm working with, because that will give you the perspective. So basically, I'm working with the Pakistan Petroleum Limited. It's one of the oldest organizations. It was set up in 1950, so we are as old as the country, probably. Our first discovery was from Sui in 1952. So it's been 70 years since we are producing from Sui field. It was the largest field, oil and gas field, and for many decades, and is still producing a sizable amount of gas. And we have all other gas and oil fields as well across the country. Our SUI field is located in Balochistan in Dera Bukti. And we have quite a strong union working with us. So the workers union is very strong. And one of the speakers talked about working outside the comfort zone. So that was one area which was actually outside my comfort zone when I joined PPL, because previously I was working with all the multinationals, so there were no unions. So I never dealt with the union as such. And same goes with my CEO, because he was coming from abroad as well, working for multinationals. So when I had the first interaction with him, and we discussed what are the key areas or the pain points where we need to work upon. So he said that definitely technical side, he said that he's quite comfortable with, because he has been dealing with that. But HR is one area where he could find problems because he was new in the country. He came back after 20 years working abroad. And the union worker issue was the biggest challenge we had, because if there is a disruption in the fields, that can turn into supply disruption of oil and gas. And as we know that Pakistan is an energy-starved country anyway, so our issue can become a national issue. So for any other commercial organization, if there is a problem, that would probably be limited to the organization's profitability or production or supply chain. But in our case, if there is a disruption, that can end up into a natural disaster, because we are one of the major supplier of energy to the country. And as I said, we are operating mainly in Dera Bukti because that's the biggest field. We have the highest number of workers we have over there. So we are dealing with them. And in the past, there has always been a long negotiations when we were having this union negotiations, which is to be done after every 2 years. Another issue was that they were actually, the union was getting a bit aggressive, not very aggressive, but there was a tendency that it could turn into a major issue if something drastic is not done. So we in HR, we discussed that thing, and we decided to form a strategy, and our strategy was basically based on 3 targets. One was to have better amicable discussions without any serious issues, because when you go into negotiations, there can be, it can be escalated. So we wanted to keep it as friendly as possible, change the trend. The second thing was to complete it in a fast track. So duration of negotiations, we tried to, that was our second point of a strategy, to reduce the duration of negotiation. And the third one was that the outcome of the agreement should be a win-win situation for both the parties. And so, all 3 of these targets were in one way or the other challenging each other. So to achieve that strategy, we used our behavioral competency. So if we look into the HR competencies, there are functional strategy and the competency, and there is behavioral competency. So we focused on interpersonal cluster, where one of the relationship management is one of the competencies. The other one is communication. And then there are certain sub-competencies, a total of about 8 sub-competencies, which are part of these 2 competencies. So we use that regarding this relationship management. We tried to build relationship, and that was by having a trust between the 2 parties, because I felt when I started negotiations, I felt that there is a trust deficit between the 2 sides, because we were dealing with a worker who belonged to a different background, from social background, educational background, and the party who were dealing with them, the IR team, they were from a different side. So there was a kind of trust deficit. So we tried to bridge the gap. We had communication strategy where we explain to them the organizational situation, where we are heading, what are the challenges as an organization we are facing. And we also demonstrated them that we have to work for a common goal, because if something happens to the organization, of course, that will affect both the parties, management as well as workers. So we were able to build that rapport. We were able to have that teamwork between both the parties. And we also had exchange of organizational information where we told them about the production side, what are the challenges, circular debt, because that is something which is in the media anyway. So I think people would know that although PPL is a very profitable organization, we have actually achieved the record profit in this year and also in the previous years. So we are increasing from the profitability side, but there is a challenge due to circular debt on receivables. So all these things we talked with the union and the workers, and they started understanding. And they started understanding that whatever we are doing together, that will help the future and consistency in their jobs and because we have workers who are actually third generation working in the organization. So they understand that there is a continuity of service. If the organization remains there, they will have generations to come who can work for the organization. So together with the use of these competencies, we were able to achieve our the agreement closure in the record time. In the past, we used to have 1 year, 1.5 years, even up to 2 years of negotiations. And you would be surprised to know, and there were always a backlog. So after 2 years, which the agreement which was supposed to be completed, that used to take another year or year and a half. So what we did in the last 6 months, we concluded 2 agreements, which is a record. So we concluded 1 agreement in the last year, end of the last year. And the second agreement we concluded in June this year. So that is the record of, I would say, 70 years. And that was achieved mainly because of these competencies, which we used quite aggressively. So yeah, that's all from my side.
Excellent. I think very good demonstration of the precise contribution, because as a head of the HR, I understand there are a lot of fronts on which you are tackling, but in terms of a clear takeaway, you identified the pain points for the business, visualize the implication for how this is going to turn into a business problems and what are going to be implication in terms of the disruption, a loss of revenue, and even threatening some of the sustainability issues from the oil and gas perspective. So thank you so much for this clear articulation. So with this, I think we can move to our next speaker, Mr. Bakhar Ahmed. And Bakhar is also SHRM SCP, Senior Certified Professional, head of the HR Exim Bank of Pakistan. He's a Senior Certified Professional accredited by Society for Human Resource Management, USA. He's also silver medalist in MBA program from LUMS, MBIT, CIIT, Islamabad, and bachelor degree in civil engineering from UAT Lahore. He started his professional career in 1995 with HPL and served in the field of operations, credits, and human resources. He's worked in ASCRI Bank, UBank, and Finca as CHRO. Bakhar has also successfully managed HR during the COVID pandemic while introducing staff health, safety, and well-being initiative to protect against the moving targets. He is currently with the Exim Bank of Pakistan as head of the HR, a unique opportunity in utilizing the professional and the personal experience to build the entire function for a new institution, from designing, evolving, and implementing policies, process, and system, thus providing an enabling platform for the bank to meet its national objectives to foster the growth of the exports. So over to you, Bakhar, and looking forward for your brief perspective on the how you're managing the key issues in the organizations from the HR perspective.
Thank you, Zaid sir, for the opportunity. And I'm really honored to have sharing my thoughts with the august audience. You might have heard me when I was with the previous organization with large numbers, let's say 7,500 plus employees at ASCRI, and then at Finca, nearly 3,000. And every time when you give me the idea or perspective to look back at the competencies, I have to align myself differently because each organization requires different areas. And I find that some things that we have discussed earlier may not be required in the organization or in the current context. So for me, I would like to request and inform the audience that whichever organization you are and wherever it is in its life cycle, HR keeps on evolving and changing. So from an organization of nearly 7,500, I was the fourth employee hired over here at Exim Bank. And it's a unique institution in the sense that 63 countries have Exims today. In Pakistan, inshallah, would be the 64th country that is making its own Exim. The only commonality with the banking sector is the word bank. Other than that, there are a lot of about insurance, a lot of about export credits and others, which may not be available today to some of the exporters as well as to some of the banks. So for us, the customers would be banks as well as exporters. So this was a new area, and being the fourth employee after CEO, CFO, business head, and HR, although the preference is not as such, but being the fourth employee, you have a clean slate in front of you. Then you have to have the expertise and systems available to understand what type of HR the organization would be. We looked at the bank strategy, what type of HR is required. Today, again, we have just 22 employees so far because we haven't received the commencement of business license from central bank. But making sure that we are applying the best practices, I would say that at some institutions, from total manual HR to totally automated HR, that helped that institution grow even in numbers, even the business sales volumes increased. Why? Because people started trusting HR due to the transparencies brought in by systems and ops. And they knew that systems and ops would be the first thing, and then leadership and things would come follow, as Dr. Karsa rightly pointed out. Here also, we were lucky that State Bank allowed banks to go on cloud HR computing, and then we introduced actually our HRMS, which is based on cloud model. And during our commencement of business, State Bank made sure that they looked at our model completely, that what type of HR systems are we using on clouds and how it works and how it actually helps in compliance and in agility as well as transparency. So for us, the first and foremost thing, remember, was a challenge at time of recruitment because everybody had to take a leap of faith like us. We made sure that communication was very open. People need to understand what national cause is the bank going to support and how they would be able to understand or be part of this institution which is being formed. So most important thing, I would say at this stage, is to help understand people what type of bank it will become and how large or small the bank would be in the future. So for that, business acumen for me, it becomes very important in the sense that I've worked in HR, I've worked in credits, I've worked in operations, I've worked in corporate as well as commercial banking. So I understand what banking is. But again, from walking down from an organization of 7,500 plus people to 4 people, you come to see new challenges in HR because this is a totally blue ocean in the sense that nobody today, if you want to find a skill set, has a complete experience of insurance as well as HR. Insurance being regulated by SCCP in Pakistan and banking being regulated by central bank. So our act is recent, which is recently promulgated, allows State Bank to regulate both our insurance business as well as our banking business. So to find a skill set in amongst those who have banking as well as insurance, I'm not talking banker insurance, but credit insurance for exporters, that is becoming a challenge, but it also is helping us to attract people because now we are giving them an opportunity to upskill themselves, to reskill themselves, not only bankers, but insurance people who have worked in the insurance industry. They can reskill themselves by joining the bank and making sure that they would be knowing banking while banking people would be knowing insurance. So that again is the first challenge. Then secondly, once somebody is on board, how would you make sure that these employees are engaged? because for engagement, we all know that people are interested in challenging assignments, they are interested in engaging assignments, they are interested in rewarding assignments. So how Exim's overall HR strategy would be able enable them to have those all three things? The answer came from simple communication. Open communication whenever an employee sees that their voice is heard, their opinions are valued, and most importantly, whatever they suggest are becoming part of establishing a new organization. You'll find people who are not only restricted to their own areas, they'll come out and help other areas also, risk, compliance, other areas in the industry to make, in the institution, to make sure that the institution is able to be placed on sound footings. And thirdly, employee retention, another area. If you engage themselves, you keep them, and suddenly you find that, as I joined way back in, let's say, September 21, 1.5 years, we are still trying to come up with the requirements or meet the requirements of central bank to get our license. So chances are how these people would then be retained, because they are coming from, one should say, going concern to a concern that needs to move. So for me again, and for HR again, to make sure that they remain completely engaged, retained in the organization, we help them understand through, again, open communication, that they are treated at par, and their voice is heard, and they are able to make changes in the institution. For example, in my case, not only we brought in the best practices through the cloud system, but also made sure that everybody was able to participate in its implementation. So now there is no differences that this is what HR has said. Because we are a small team, everybody has shared their experiences. We are able to incorporate those in the system. And now it's on their mobile phone. They can easily utilize the resources of or the available tools within the HR system. So again, as I told you last time when we had a discussion, some other things of the competency model were required at that time. And when we are having a discussion now, a totally different linkage with the competency model is there. And I still believe that having standards, having an understanding of those standards has helped me a lot. I'm open to questions.
Absolutely. Very rightly said, it's the context of the organization which dictates what is required at what stage, and some of the competency that you have reinforced. It's a transparency by maximizing the use of the IT platforms, open communications, focusing on the retention, and baseline is the business acumen, knowing how you can basically align yourself with the requirement of the organization. Wonderful. So, Bakar, with your permission, we'd like to defer the question toward the end. In the interest of the time, we already, I think, consumed the bandwidth that we promised with everyone. So we have still one speaker left over. I'm hoping we are going to wind up another 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. So with
Sure,
this, we move to the next speaker, and hopefully the last speaker, budding HR leader, very enthusiastic, Talha Wasi. Gold medalist from IBA, senior member of the HRSG people and culture team, and an experienced HR professional having almost 10 years of the well-rounded experience in talent management, running an OD, performance management, reward analytics, business partnering, and HR operations. Apart from experience at HRSG, he worked with the organization like Unilever, Food Panda, and Ideas by Gul Ahmed, where he was engaged in a majority of the HR expertise and operation projects. Academically, he holds a master's degree from IOBM and has completed his postgraduate diploma in HRM from IBA Karachi, where he secured the gold medal. He has also recently passed SHRM Senior Certified Professional Certification and is in Diversity and Equity Inclusion Certified Professional. He is someone who understands the needs of the organization's people, and always creates a balance between the two through the collaborative and the consultative approach. So thank you, Talha. Over to you.
Thank you, Zahid sir. I hope I'm audible enough, sir. Thank you, Zahid sir, for the opportunity again to share the screen with such experienced names in the industry. And thank you for such a beautiful introduction. शुरुआत में जब बात हो रही थी, जब आपने स्टार्ट किया था, जब वकार साहब ने स्टार्ट किया था, we all talked about different competencies and the survey that you shared with all of us. So उसमें different competencies थी, and one which picked my eye was business acumen, which then was talked about more in length with by Waqar Saab. For me, the role of HR is evolving, and the business acumen competency is one of the core competencies today for all HR professionals, and not only for the sales professionals or other professionals in the company. I was reading this article, and it stated that business acumen is one of the most lacking competencies when the CEOs are searching for top talent in HR. So that tells you a lot, that a lot of HR professionals who are now coming out of the market or in the market, they know very less about the business itself, and how can they add value to the business. Because एक चीज जो हमने देखी भी है, और बहुत सारे लोग इस पे यकीन भी रखेंगे कि ज्यादातर CEOs जो हमारी इंडस्ट्री में हैं और वर्ल्ड वाइड, they talk in numbers, they understand numbers. जब तक उनको numbers में बात नहीं की जाए, तब तक they don't get the grip of it. So for me, I believe this is one of the most important competencies to be held in today's HR professional. Again, I 41% right now, 41% of the CEOs cite that business acumen is one of the most lacking competencies in HR. So this does not tell us that there is a huge gap, but also what the CEO of today wants in their HR professional. When HR practitioners are able to fully grasp how the business works and speak the language of the leaders, they can substantially impact business results. This does not add incredible value to the organization, but also it increases it creates strategies that increases competitiveness, and obviously it drives profit. It is not just related to their own scope of talent and engagement and attraction and attention. It is to understand what the business is all about, what the business needs today, what is the business strategy, and how can HR strategy mingle in and join hands with the business strategy and run parallel to it. That is the only way HR can add value, substantial value to the organization. And when one HR professional fully understands the organization's goals, their values, purposes, their understanding of what's needed evolves, and you'll be more confident in taking action and implementing change. They will not only earn the credibility and trust of the senior leadership, but shall also be able to make their own place on the table. Because unfortunately, in a lot of organizations today, HR does not have a seat on the table. And why do they not have a seat on the table? Because the business leaders, they know that the HR does not understand the business, and they are only an expense or a support function, right? So at the end of the day, if HR professionals, they are building on the understanding of the business, their suggestions are adding value to the business. Okay, what are the pain points of the business? कि कहाँ पे मुश्किलात आ रही हैं? What are the employees saying? How can they bridge the gap between the employees and the business leaders, right? That's only when they will get the table. They will get a chair on the table. Why is business acumen important for HR professionals? Because it does not develop the trust of the business leaders, but it gives the HR professional the insight into the business. Okay, actual challenges क्या है? Sales वाला अगर बाहर निकल के सेल कर रहा है, तो उसके actual challenge क्या है? Operations वाला अगर अंदर बैठ के अपना सारा का सारा operation run कर रहा है, उसके क्या challenges हैं? It also gives you, it also gives the the HR professionals the vision and the ability to make and contribute towards the strategy part of the entire organization. It is just not another tick on the checklist कि अच्छा मैंने ये भी कर लिया, मैंने team भी कर लिया, everything, but it gives you the insight towards the strategy. What exactly is the business strategy, and what are the gaps in those business strategies, and it helps you make better decisions. But while we talk about business acumen as one of the important competencies, there are some other competencies that also come in mind, and that works like magic if done rightly. One of which is analytical aptitude. And the 4 HR competencies which are very important is data literacy, is digital proficiency, and people advocacy. Again, data literacy, अगर आपको data पढ़ना आएगा ही नहीं तो आप समझेंगे क्या कि कहाँ पे आपके actions की ज़रूरत है. आजकल, and when you shared the slide, 2 of those certifications were directly related to data, right? It was how do you interpret the data that you're getting. आप तो बिजनेस को वो अच्छे डैशबोर्ड तो बना के दे देते हैं कि हाँ ये मैंने अच्छा डैशबोर्ड बना दिया, ये मैंने अच्छा डैशबोर्ड बना दिया, बट बिजनेस ये नहीं चाहता कि आप सिर्फ अच्छे से डैशबोर्ड बना के दे दें. बिजनेस बोलता है कि मसला कहाँ पे आ रहा है, इस डैशबोर्ड को मैं पढ़ूं कैसे, how am I able, what should I do to read this dashboard, right? So that is where data literacy comes in, because जब तक आपको बिजनेस की इंसाइट नहीं होगी, आपके पास डैशबोर्ड चाहे 100 डैशबोर्ड आ जाएं, आपको पता नहीं चलेगा कि एक्चुअली मसला कहाँ है, कहाँ पे, what are the pain points, what are the leakages, where do we need to implement short-term solutions, what are the long-term strategies that we need to implement to cover up those issues, right? So data literacy, analytical aptitude is very important and goes hand in hand with business acumen. And not only will it strengthen the HR department, but it will also help the HR professional connect HR strategy with the wider business strategy and enable them to provide real value to the organization that leaders will notice. I was reading this article, and it said that 92% of HR professionals are planning to use people analytics to drive their HR strategies. So we're on the right path. We understand now that it's just not dashboard, it is how to present those and what are those actions that are taken to drive the HR strategy and how can we add value. And the competencies of an HR practitioner, including the ability to understand key HR metrics such as employee turnover, absenteeism, engagement, retention, which were all talked about. That will these analytics, they will help the HR professional carry a very sound business case in front of the business leaders so that they understand कि अच्छा अब ये हमारे भी बोली बोलना शुरू हो गए. So now we understand. तो अगर आप मुझसे चाइनीज से बात करेंगे और मैं इंग्लिश समझता हूँ तो हमारी वो कम्युनिकेशन नहीं होगी जब तक आप और मैं एक लैंग्वेज पे नहीं आ जाते. And fortunately, unfortunately, the language of today that business leaders understand is those analysis that they need to drive the business strategy and the HR strategy hand in hand. Again, and it's not enough to know the metrics. HR professional needs to understand people analytics and how to manage people analytics projects as well. At the end of the day, we are all striving, we're all understanding, and we're all chasing after business targets, and we're all chasing after adding value to the business. But if you don't have business acumen and analytics embedded in yourself as a core competency as an HR professional, then I believe it's a lost cause for the organization. And at the end, how I see it is basically business acumen tells you the why of the strategy, कि क्यों करना है, and analytics tells you the where, कि कहाँ करना है. And I believe if those two questions are answered, half of the battle is won, and the only half remaining is the implementation of the suggestions that are made after consensus of the management. So that was from my side. And I would like to open the forum for questions if there are any.
Very nice. I think very well said that business acumen is the bottom line, and using the language of numbers and the ratios, which is understood by the business. And I would revise this statement in a way that using the language of numbers and ratios with a focus on impact. Impact is
Yes.
because
Yes.
already the global research says that there are numbers, but more of a head count, right? So we need to, go beyond that, very wisely said. So overall, I think I was just compiling some of the things those have been said by the different speakers, like the engagement, business acumen. Of course, each competency was, some of the competencies were reinforced many times. The need for the HR strategy, generation diversity, agility, right person for the right job. A new perspective, like looking at the compensation of the front end workforce. It's your choice of your organization. You want to have outsourced or regular, but looking at the compensation in a way that they feel embedded, they feel committed to the organization. Leadership development, commitment engagements, analytics, outcomes, right? Learning outcomes, diversity, inclusion. Not acting as a compliance cop. I think this was said by Maheen. So yes, HR is responsible for enforcement of the policies, but it has to be done in an innovative way, creating a performing culture, transparency through technology and other policies, communications, and the retention. So with this, I think we can stop over here. And I just want to highlight before we take the question that, interestingly, the model that we have used in Pakistan is quite successful. It's not that what we are saying, we looked at some of the results which have come through these different global surveys, but we also wanted to understand how it is impacting the people. So we did a survey in Pakistan. We engaged the community who are certified, and we tried to understand how it is impacting this competency framework. Those who are using it, you have listened to the speakers. So this is just a crux of the survey findings. We have a report on our website. If you share the report, you can look at the complete report where the people are satisfied in terms of their new learning, in terms of giving them a confidence. This is critical, because if you ask this one question from the 10 people, you'll find 10 different answers that erode the credibility of the HR. So knowing the confidence of from where it comes, right? That's important, because it comes from the world largest HR association. So it gives you more confidence, and the people said that has improved their job performance. It has helped the people in terms of internal recognition, the external job mobility. An interesting part is that high-performing people who are not looking for the external job, they're still doing their certification because they feel this is a recipe for their success. In terms of the tangible benefits, which is obviously one of the important takeaway for everyone, there are people, I think it was an eye-opener for me, at least there are a handful of the people, 2.7%, a little number, but they had an increase of 5 to 10 million per year. We are in different brackets, and there are people with a different raises in the salary. So interestingly, it's a good opportunity basically to develop yourself. So I stop over here. I'm I think open to any question or comment from your side. If it is there, then we can conclude. So final 2 to 3 minutes for any questions or comments. Sorry for the bit delay. We didn't want to discourage anyone. We wanted to give maximum, I think, the possible time to the speakers to have their opinion. Already we cited everyone that this is what is the limited time, but we still respect their perspective and wanted to be a more inclusive session. So we didn't discourage anyone in terms of this little drift and the timing. So any question or the comments? Okay, I understand. Just the end of the week. It is end of the week and start of the weekend. And have a very nice weekend. Thank you so much once again for your participation. All the speakers, amazing delivery. I'm grateful for your presence and looking forward to listen to your perspective some other time again. So all the best. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zaid. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Allah Hafiz.